Well. Monolith Festival is about to kick off in August this year, and it follows all the way through into September, where it finishes up in Perth. And the legendary Karnivool and COG are headlining this amazing 5 shows from Adelaide all the way through to Perth. And today, to chat about it all, I've got the legendary Lucius Borich on the line from COG. Mate, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, all things considered, mate. Yeah, for the most part. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Mate, it looks a little bit chilly where you're at. Are you're all rugged up there?
Today is a little chilly. I've got shorts on and I've just got kind of like, I just got this little pullover and a t-shirt underneath. We're pretty good here with the cold, but a little more bite to it today.
Yeah.
Nice. We've actually had almost 3 weeks of continual sun with no rain. You got to remember, around here we've had pretty much almost like 6 months of rain, and that's why we got all those floods and everything. So
I was about to say you've probably had enough for the year, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So to have the 3 weeks consecutive like sunshine every day has just been like a blessing. It's just been It felt so good. So I've just been like a lizard or some type of reptile. Just every time it's out, I'm just, out trying to soaking up the vitamin D and, getting back what I lost over those 6 months of, no sun.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, mate, it's pretty hard to ignore the legacy that both Karnivool and COG have in this country, especially, sort of within that sort of hard rock and heavy and, progressive space in Australia, fairly well have defined the sound. And it's been 17 years, I believe, since you guys have been on the same bill. So, I mean, what's your memories of thinking back to those early days, you guys sharing the same bills, the same stages, and, was there a sense of that you guys were, changing up the sound or defining a sound for the country, for that, those sorts of bands?
Yeah, I remember in the early days when we first heard Karnivool and we released the new normal, and Karnivool hadn't come to the East Coast at all.
Yeah.
And we came across them and really liked that album, their first one. So it was kind of like, I think we went to Perth and we did one show with them there. And then we were like, you've got to come and do a tour with us.
Yeah.
No one really knew them back then.
Yeah.
So I was still on the West Coast, and we had like about almost like 30 shows as a run of shows for the new normal tour, which we were really pleased and happy about. And we wanted them on the bill, and we begged them to kind of, come on the bill. And it was just a matter of logistically trying to get it across the line so they could join
Get them across the desert.
Yeah, they wanted to do it. But, back then you got to remember we were all kind of, we were all strapped for somewhat, cash and logistically how we were going to do it or whatever. But we made it work, and it worked. And it was a fantastic time. I just remember the community that built out of that was just was epic, and I think it still holds really strong today. Like it's people who were there know, and they've all ran with the baton somewhat down the road, and remember those times we had together. When we got together that 17 years ago for those tours. So I know to have us, coming back together like that is well, it's a miracle. As I say, it's a miracle to keep your own band together and get your own band in the rehearsal room, let alone get 2 bands on the same bill that all have busy lives and other things going on and whatnot. So it's like a miracle. It's fantastic. So if you got a ticket to it, it's a special occasion, and we all feel it's a special occasion.
Definitely. So I think people forget as well that you guys did just so many kilometers as a band, touring like in your troopy, and really just road dogged it for so long. And that was really, I think, a bit of a staple of bands around that time. Like when people speak about the you know, quote unquote big four of Australian, you know, prog and heavy rock, you know, Karnivool, you guys, Butterfly Effect and Dead Letter, all of you have definitely done the kilometers on the you know, on the road. And that, you know, that's really resulted in, you know, you guys popped into places that normally don't get shows or stuff like that. And it's resulted in some really passionate fans. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, I'd hate to be starting a band now, you know, especially in the last 2.5 years, you know, considering all the lockdowns and everything else that's gone on, because we, you know, completely, wholly and solely relied on going from venue to venue every weekend and doing that, you know, religiously for like 8 years.
Yeah.
Distantly, you know, building a community in every place we could venture to. And that took a lot of, you know, a lot of, well, there was like 8 of us, I remember, in the troopy car, you know,
Holy
in those
smokes.
and they've become our favourite car, you know, not sponsored by them or, you know, giving them a plug or anything, but I tell you what, you know, they definitely helped us get across the line, you know, and yeah, those times are really special. There's so much dedication and commitment. And, you know, brick by brick, you know, fan by fan, person by person that stepped through the door, we built, and all together collectively built that community. And it definitely holds strong now, you know, and yeah, it's worth its weight in gold, so to speak, you know, just being able to actively participate in touring on the ground at ground level, because it was kind of pre-internet too, you know. There was it was just, you know, I remember, oh, okay, MySpace and emails and newsletters, and you can do this now, and you can, so that was a bit of a new frontier, but it was still, yeah, it wasn't really, you know, everyone was just starting to get into it, but it was more street, you know, advertising in street magazines, and it was all on the ground, you know, it was all witnessed on the ground. It was that kind of relationship, you know, whereas you knew people were going to see it, you know, they'd drive past it, or they, you know, I used to go into magazine stores and I called it slippery slip-ins, you know, you'd have flyers and you'd go to the surf mags, escape mags, the music mags, and I'd slip in our the Rolling Stone, the music, slip in our flyers in all the, you know, so when they'd open up the magazine, you know, a lot of people would pay, you know, probably, I don't know, $1,000 to put an ad in. They'd have a COG, you know, little COG thing in there saying where we play, a little flyer, so, you know, it was things
ingenious.
Yeah, they were called slippery slip-ins, and I swear that's why they ended up putting the plastic on all those things, because that was my fault, because I started slipping in all those things in the magazines and all the record stores. I got caught once, and that was pretty funny. The guy goes like, "What are you doing?" You know, because he had to try and be inconspicuous as you were shoving in the things to some degree. And I said, "Well,
you can't be there too long either, because you can't stand there reading the magazines. You got to buy them, right? Like,
you get your dirty mitts all over the mags." But I said, "Oh, I'm actually just slipping flyers into the magazines." And he goes, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, I'm doing it. And don't you think it's a good idea? Like, it's like, I haven't got the money to advertise them, but I'm just putting a flyer in there for our band. I don't think it's really doing any harm. You know, I'll take care of your bags, you know, like, I'm not going to, you know, I want people to buy them to actually get the flyer. So you know, I think it's quite entrepreneurial of myself to do that. You know,
it's not like you were trying to slip it in a new idea or something where people weren't going to be interested. You know, you were putting it in.
I slipped a few in No Idea in Women's Weekly. Don't worry about
that. All of a sudden, you got some people's nanas turning up to your shows.
Yeah, still with us today.
Mate, it's you know, it's quite the lineup that's on Monolith Festival. You know, Sleep Makes Waves are on there, and Pliny and Ocean Grove. And I mean, have you gone and checked out all of the? I mean, obviously Sleep Makes Waves, you'd be across, I'm sure. You guys would have played together a bunch of times. You know, Pliny, Ocean Grove, Relica. Have you checked out all of these bands?
No, not in the live environment.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff online which I've really liked, but you know, for me, it's always I get a buzz and I get to know if they're the real deal when I'm actually in the same room
Yep.
in a live environment. So
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing some, some new bands, because I don't get out too much to go and see new bands, because I'm just so busy doing lots of other things, and I'd love to, but just lots of things that come on the table that I've got to attend to. So, but yeah, this is a great excuse to be able to,
Absolutely.
like what's coming through the ranks, so to speak,
Getting back to when we were talking just before about, getting out on the road and just being a road dog and playing shows and all of that sort of stuff. Do you think, that, I mean, certainly for yourself, I mean, you're a master drummer, has that, regularly being on stage, do you think that has really, made a difference to not just your chops, but the actual performance and live, projection of the songs that you guys write? Do you think that makes a difference to a band's show, like that sort of really honed stage performance, not just in the rehearsal room, but on the stage and putting on a performance?
Yeah, it's a really, really good point, and a very important point too that you bring up. I mean, I play a lot of with a lot of the different other musicians outside of COG. Cover bands, other original bands,
With your dad,
whatever. I've played with my father, as well. And the moral there is to just be on stage as much as you can, playing as much as you can with as much different types of music as you can, just to keep oiled and keep, like as you said, keep your chops up, and to be in that environment. Because what I have learned is it's really not a nice feeling when you haven't been there for a while, and you get in there and it's like it's somewhat foreign, and you've got to acclimate to these things again. So it's really, really important for me as a player, not only to connect with real musicians and keep playing and be spontaneous, and because a lot of the musicians I play with are great musicians. We'll do lots of different cover stuff, but it's very spontaneous at the same time, very jammy orientated, very moment, and quite spontaneous. So it's very important for me as a musician to do that, sticks in hand. I'll always put my hand and say yes, so and go and do a show. I'm better off doing that than sitting on the couch. Just the ritual of you getting the drums, putting it in the car, going to the gig, setting it up. That's, for me, that's all fitness orientated. That's all mental and fitness orientated stuff, which is great for my capacity as a drummer to keep mentally strong and physically strong.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can get on stage and do what I've got to do with COG as well, because that's a different dynamic as well to some of the other music that I play when I'm playing with other people and whatnot. And although COG doesn't play as much as we used to, it's definitely important not to just rest on your laurels and maybe play once every 3 years or something like that, although it feels like it's been like that because of it that's happened. But we've gotten together in between that off and on, and look, as a band you really get to know, and as a player you really get to know who you are, what you need to work on when you're actually in the live environment, and you're playing in the live environment. And that's where it's at. You've heard it said that you can't get an experience of the Grand Canyon by just looking at a photo. You've got to go to the Grand Canyon and have a look. So to understand the magnitude and the value of that, and so much of today's music is all ingested on devices. I get that. Obviously, it's a no-brainer to some degree, but at the same token, I don't get any feeling from it as much when I'm in a live environment with a band, and I'm really immersed in that proximity of vibrationally being in community with the band and the people around me and all that type of stuff. So
that actually.
They foster a way a musician plays, and how they handle themselves as a musician. It's a very sacred, special, growing, space for musicians. So, and it's a good point, because obviously we haven't had that, considering the last 2.5 years and what we've all gone through. That's probably something that's all dwelled in our minds, and we've had to kind of work through. And I know people have gone to the devices to have outlets and whatnot, but I think it's definitely not a it's not a place of growth at all.
Yeah.
I think it's a very stagnant, just being in the basement the whole time. Of course, you've got to work there. You got to get your chops up. You got to practice. You got to do that. I understand all that. But yeah, definitely, live is where it's at, and that has to be, we have to really honour that and carry that flag as musicians, so we can, really be who we really are spontaneously in those moments with the music that we've actually created over the times we've created them, and it brings a fresh experience for people, to enjoy.
Agreed. Yeah. It actually brings me to a question I had for you is, on that level of that, that audience and band connection that you sort of mentioned there, is there any moment that you can think of, or, or that sticks out for you, a moment where, the three of you have been playing on stage and you've just really sensed, wow, like we've got this crowd is like 1,000% on side with us right now. We've somehow like really tapped into that same, wavelength here, and they're coming along on this. I mean, I'm sure it happens fairly regularly. I've been to many COG gigs. I've certainly, ridden the wave with you at the show, but it's sort of, are there any real standouts to you that you go like, holy shit, that was something we really elevated that show tonight?
Yeah, no, that's another great point. You said wavelength. Wavelength is what we're using, frequency, vibration. So, when it all, pardon the pun, resonates and kind of comes together at the right time, some of the shows become so special and for lack of a better term, orgasmic, musically orgasmic, because it is hitting all those points of frequency and wavelengths. You've got the bands tapped in for whatever reason, they're all synced.
Yep.
The audio synced, the PA's working, the lights are, we're working with wavelengths, electricity and vibrations. Yep. So, that actually, creates, in a room, solidly that reality, that vibrational reality that we all experience. It's just such a special moment, and that's why for eons people have kept coming back and getting together collectively, communally to have experiences vibrationally and wavelength wise with music and live music, because it's a part of of who we are, and really reaching that deeper part of ourselves, our spirited selves, our soul. And all that stuff, and it ignites us into the creativity of reality and creation. It's a very special place, and it brings a lot of joy. It brings a lot of creative aspirations in people with whatever they're doing, whether it's in their lives. It doesn't have to be music, but there's been many a time. But there's been some golden moments where you feel, wow, that's what you do it for. Okay, you don't get it all the time, and that's probably a good thing to some degree, because you're aspiring to always just be the best you can be, perform the best you can, considering everything you have to consider, all things considered. But when you do meet that apex, as a band, it's a really nice feeling, and you come off stage and you feel like part of the creative realm of creation, and the special place to be, I think. That's
really cool, man. I'm glad that that's something that you are always, sort of shooting for. That's the goal, I think that's probably, the highest aspiration of art, is that you're shooting for, that it connects really, really soundly with the audience that you want to connect with. And that's awesome. I guess last question before we sort of wrap things up is, getting back to you being a drummer, are there any drummers out there in the world at the moment that are like exciting you and inspiring you, newer ones? Obviously there's a ton of the usual suspects that everyone loves to watch and to be inspired by, but are there any newer drummers out there that are really sort of setting your world on fire?
I came across this guy, funnily enough, online. It was more in a jazz setting. I can tell he's a jazz player. It was a live setting too, so he did video it live, and I do like that.
Yep.
If I'm going to get close to someone, a drummer or something like that, I definitely much prefer to see them in the live environment if I can ever, But obviously, this chap was like overseas somewhere in America.
Yeah.
He, just his approach to the drum kit and the way he approached the drum kit and the way he played passionately in the live environment that he had set up when he was with his band and whatnot. I actually wrote on there and I said, you did it. You did it. You've created your own sense of self and personality and originality organically just through the medium that I'm seeing it in. And I just put fucking well done, and I put those little emoji claps in there. And that is
quite the tip of the cap, mate.
Yeah, it was like, and I got a little like back from that. But what I was saying, obviously in that, which is what I just said, but it's hard to and I do come across drummers through because I try to follow what's going on to some degree. And yeah, he just stuck out. Now the real shit thing here is I've forgotten his name. But he was, the way he approached the kit was great, and it was so fluid and just really lovely to watch. And it was quite, I could say, sporadically, it was strange. He just had a strange approach. But it's fantastic. And it was very inspiring and spontaneous,
But I guess in the same way that, the first time the actual drum set was played was probably very, very strange to, marching drummers or, people who had played each of those drums individually in an orchestra prior to that. It was probably strange for to see someone play an entire drum set together. So any progression or, evolution in the way that an instrument or anything is done or played, is going to be strange at first.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm pretty hard to impress too, because I've seen when I grew up as a player and I was, watching drummers and going to a lot of drum clinics and seeing drummers and stuff like that. A lot of drummers who had names, they had real runs on the board because you saw their concerts that they were performing. A lot of the stuff was VHS videotaped and whatnot. So you would see incredible performances if you weren't lucky enough to be in the live environment with them. And then, obviously you had drum clinics and things like that. But a lot of these people, they really cemented their work in, not only songwriting and playing with many different types of musicians and on many different albums and so forth, and becoming, these great drummers. Nowadays it's really different. I see really different. Someone who's perhaps just doing a cover of something, that they themselves, and they're just virtually playing along to someone else's parts, which there's nothing wrong with that. I grew up doing that and trying to learn and do all that type of stuff, but these people seem to have this huge audience, and
just
they're getting
mimicry,
sponsorships and all sorts of stuff, and I'm like, they haven't even done anything. They haven't done Like all they've done is they've grown a platform playing along to music, which is fine if they want to do that. That's how you learn. Obviously, I get it. But back in my day, it's long ago. It's not that long ago, but I mean, yeah, just drummers earned the right, I guess, to have a place of value, you know, because they worked really hard at what they worked at, and they put the runs on the board because they put the runs on the board because
Yeah, I
of
guess
what they came up with, what their true expression was, and who they truly were. You know, it's kind of like what I say to my children. You know, it's like you're following all these people, but are you creating your own reality?
yeah.
You know, you're just following everyone else's reality. Like, what are you going to create? What are you going to become? What's
Yes.
going to be interesting and you know, and something for you where that's you know, your spark of creation. You know, I get it. You know, looking at other people and you know, admiring and all the rest of it. But yeah, I get concerned with a bit of that. You know, I guess, and I get quite bored with it too. You know, okay, here's someone else. Other cover of fucking something, you know, like, I mean, big fucking deal, you know.
Yeah.
Like, get in the basement and get on stage and start playing and start playing some, you know, of your own music, your real, you know, something you've created and you've come up with.
Yeah,
you know,
your own flair.
So it's you, it's your expression, it's your individual, you know, creativity expression, you know, of who you really are in, you know, in your sense of self, your spirited self.
Amazing.
You know, so.
Mate, on that note, I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. I really want to thank you for your time. Really looking forward to seeing you guys out on the Monolith Festival tour alongside Karnivool and Sleep Makes Waves and Rallica, the whole gamut of the band. So really appreciate your time, and thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, Tim. Yeah, thanks for having me, mate.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Cheers. See you, mate.
All right. Take care, mate. Speak to you soon.
Bye.